I would love to master the Scottish accent. I just need to watch a few more videos of Billy Connolly doing his thing.
It's a good one.
He is good. Pastor is in London right now. He's not staying in London very long though. I don't know. He said they're only there for like a day and a half, but he didn't mention where they're going after that. So we'll be closely monitoring Miss Debbie's Facebook page to see where in the world is Donald Mac Brunson. Yeah. There's a blast from the past. Jared doesn't even know what that show is, what that's from.
Do we want to talk about the fact that your brother was on piano yesterday?
I think we should talk about it.
He did a great job. And then after rehearsal, I walked over and you were like, "Hey, do you guys know each other?" I was like, "Yeah, it's just been a really long time." And he says, All I really remember about you is...
Talking to you.
Yes. Yeah. All he really remembered about me was that when I came to visit you guys, right after you had Nell, which means y'all would have only been here a few months because Nell was born very shortly after you started here.
She was, yeah.
That apparently I held your beautiful firstborn and said how ugly she was. I don't remember doing that. I can only assume that I was kidding.
I don't know that I feel like I vaguely remember it. Mm-hmm. I remember... I'm sure that I laughed. Like, that's because, of course, my daughter is exceedingly beautiful.
All of your children are. Let's be honest.
They all are. But even at that time, I was like, this baby is so beautiful. And Joe was like holding her, like, y'all, she is just so ugly. So it really caught me off guard.
First of all, it concerns me that I just don't remember saying that. And secondly, it concerns me that you and I had not known each other very long. And that I said that about your baby.
I don't know. We've had an understanding since the beginning, I feel like.
So I added on to that story for him, though, because he has a 3-month-old named Charlotte.
That's true, yes. What another beautiful baby.
And he was like, you have to meet her. So I went down and met her before the second service.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's great.
And as I was coming back up on the stage, I tapped him and I said, she's a lot prettier than Nell was.
Playing the comparison game. I'm sure he loved that. Yeah, there was a lot of jabs being thrown around. I was walking out of the church and Steph and Kelly was like, Kirkwood, it was a great day today. And I was like, yeah, it really was a good day. It's like, it was so nice finally having someone who knew what they were doing at the piano, which made me laugh really hard. I told Joel that. And he really is good at playing.
You did a great job, yeah. And I kind of watched you guys communicate. It was kind of fun too when you were like kind of showing him when to do the little hits and stuff in the kids' song during rehearsal and everything. It was cute. Yeah. Brothers.
Brotherly love.
Brothers. Never were there such devoted brothers.
I have to work on that. That's part of our routine we've been working on. So there's lots of other things we got to talk about from yesterday, right?
Yeah. So really good sermon, really good takeaways that I thought were very simple and applicable. But yes, you were talking about just the entire service.
Yeah, well,
babies dedicated, beautiful babies, all of them equally beautiful.
Yes, good save there, good recovery. Lots of great babies. Yeah, parent-child dedication was yesterday. We had the children's choir, which was really fun.
They did a great job.
I need to send a message to Amanda and Michelle because they have done a great job with the children's choir. I kind of, I probably should have had even another song with them up there, but I get worried about like sometimes the parent-child dedication takes so long. So anyway, actually had a short service, so you're welcome, Hannah Braswell, if you happen to be watching.
You know what? If it's not on October 29th, she doesn't care.
Joanne is referring to Fall Fest, which is coming up on October the 29th, 3 to 6 p.m. on that day, and we're praying for good weather. And Harper even said that to me yesterday. She was like, "Dad, it's because yesterday it was a little drizzly," and she's like, "Dad, we got to be praying because we don't want it to rain at Fall Fest." And I said, "Well, sweetie, first of all, thank you for paying attention in the service when we ask people to pray for good weather for Fall Fest. But second of all, Fall Fest still 2 weeks away, and as of yet, we do not have the technology to predict that kind of weather 2 weeks away. I still don't think we do.
May not be able to predict, but we can pray.
We can pray for sure. I guess if we want to talk about the weather for a second, it was 45 degrees this morning.
It was lovely. I was outside at around 6 a.m. and I was like, "This is the stuff. this is what we're talking about.
So you're
right
really
here.
okay with this temperature? You're into it?
Yes, yeah. It's not until it gets like that bone chilling and it kind of stays that way to like where your house just is like kind of always cold. Maybe that's our older home, but it just gets cold in the morning and it never really, really warms up. That's when I struggle, if I'm being honest.
That's probably coming. But right now we're just going to continue to enjoy this fall weather where it still gets to 60 or 70 degrees every day. Yes, this is the time of year. There's something, I don't know if it's the humidity or whatever, but there's this one step in our house that like begins to creak this time every year. Mm-hmm. When summer comes, it creaks. There's no more creak. But this time of year, it's very
because everything shrinks a little bit, so the swelling and the heat.
Is that how it works?
I think so, yeah.
If there's any general contractors watching right now that want to tell me how to fix that creak in my step, that sounded weird. In the step of my house. It's not a hitch in my get-along. This is actually
general contractors or general practitioners. We are interested in their feedback.
That's right. Please help me.
So this is like totally going off on a tangent, but
that's why we're here.
We were watching, you mentioned humidity. We were watching Amazing Race, the new season last night.
Oh, wow. Are they still making that?
They are.
Is it like their 22nd season or something?
No, like 35th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really far along. But so this is one of those shows that we like to watch so that Ken can just ask me throughout the duration, would you be able to do that? Would you? And I just consistently say to him, no. I'm just telling you. If anybody convinces me to go on this show, I would just be honest with them and say, I'll go with you. I am a deficit to your...
We are not going to win.
To your efforts.
I am dead weight.
The very first thing they did last night, not to like ruin it for anybody, but I think they're 3 episodes in at this point, was send one of them up, like just to walk across a wire up above, really up high over Bangkok. I was like, no, that was still in LA, I think. But anyway, regardless, I was like, yeah, he was like, yeah, but they're like tethered 3 different ways. And I was like, and you would be saying this to me on national television and I would still be saying, I'm not doing it.
Would Ken do it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Ken's pretty fearless. He really is.
There, whatever.
Yeah. But all of that to say, they were in Bangkok. That was their first destination. And my takeaway from it was they were all sweaty the entire time. I don't even know what time of year it was.
Yes.
It was just, they were just covered in sweat the entire time.
Yeah,
so assuming it's a little humid there. Yeah, right.
It's rough over there. Yeah, I've been through Bangkok a couple of times back in the day. And yeah, it's sweaty over there. But that's the thing, like longitudinally, is that a word?
Yeah.
Like we're in a similar spot here in Alabama. The summers are quite hot. That was one thing I remember when I first moved down here, and I think I was walking by a building in the summer, and the window panes were all completely fogged up because that's how great of a different, the condensation and everything.
Yes.
No need to get into physics, even though of course I know all of it. And I was like, wow, this is a different place. I'd never seen that in Maryland. Didn't even know what condensation was in Maryland.
So I think you and I have talked about this before. There's my vitamin alarm again, guys. 8:30.
Do you want to take your vitamins on air?
Excuse me for just a minute.
Okay. All right,
I can take them a few minutes late. Do you consider yourself a northerner or a southerner? Like if you had to classify yourself, I get it. You're the man of all people.
Yes, all things to all people. Thank you, the Apostle Paul.
What would you consider yourself?
I think comedically, I usually play up the northerner thing, but Maryland is Middle Eastern, like which is another funny thing to say. I'm Middle Eastern is what I'm saying, which goes well with our sermon yesterday. No, Middle Eastern, Maryland people forget this, but if you want to talk about the division of North and South pre-Civil War, Maryland was part of the South. It was divided at the Mason-Dixon line. So then I just realized how Pastor Mac I'm getting right now with like explaining all these historical content. Miss you, Pastor. Mason-Dixon line, the shape of Maryland, the top is completely flat. Same thing with Pennsylvania. Like that was the dividing line between North and South. But the thing was, at the beginning of the Civil War, Lincoln knew he needed to control Maryland because obviously Washington, D.C. was housed between Maryland and Virginia. So he immediately invaded Maryland. And so they were like kind of a non-player as far as the war was concerned. So
you consider yourself a northerner?
I have no idea what I could do. Listen, I probably...
That was a politician answer if I ever heard
If you want to, well,
Just
it's just, yeah, and I really don't want this to mess with my presidential bid for 2028 or whenever. But here's the thing. I'll just confess this. I am probably more of a Southerner than anything because I was born in Atlanta, Georgia, and I lived there for 10 years.
Okay.
And then I came back down to the South to go to college. I went to Belmont, which is in Nashville. So I've lived in the South.
So you're really
most of
only
my
a
life.
Northerner for about 8 years.
Yeah, they were
that right?
formative years, though, right? And my parents are from there. So
Right.
anyway, love football. Greatly enjoy barbecue. We had some last night. And
What's your opinion on grits?
Still love grits.
Okay.
Wow.
That helps.
Shrimp and grits, excellent.
Oh, yes.
Now, I see that you have a few other things prepared that you wanted to talk about. Did you want to
Yes.
run through those now?
Yes.
What, is this a segment? Should I do a drum roll or like some kind of...
Introduce the incredible graphics that Jared is going to create along with a very fall-sounding soundtrack.
Yes, so there's like computer-generated leaves falling behind us.
Yes.
What does a fall-sounding soundtrack sound like? Sound.
It's got to be acoustic for
Okay.
sure. 100%.
Got it. So you're gonna play
As long
some.
as it's a slow banjo. Yes.
I'm thinking more of a Canadian feel. Okay. All right. So what do we need
Okay,
to
so
talk
I have
about?
some more fall trivia for you.
Oh, wow.
In honor of Fall Fest, we were talking about. By the way, I did look up the weather. We're just not gonna talk about it because it's 2 weeks out. It's inaccurate. You know what I'm saying?
I so completely.
We're
agree
just
with
gonna ignore that. So.
Did I see the words Nino event that they're talking about? I saw that go by. So we won't talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this next segment is sponsored by Fall Fest, which is coming up on
Fall Fest.
October the 29th. Get your candy in now and make sure that you pre-register at valleydale.org/events to make it easier for you when the day
Pray,
comes.
as we've already talked about, and please sign up to help. There's
Indeed.
still opportunities to serve. Don't look.
I can't even see it. I don't
is
have my
always
I don't
an
have my
issue.
glasses.
Okay.
I'm not looking. You
Okay.
always okay.
This
Go ahead.
this first one is so interesting to me. I have a feeling this is gonna be another one of those things you're like, really? Is that really true?
Yeah, you did
Look,
this to me last time.
This is according to lovetoknow.com, all right? This
okay.
is for all people that just are curious-minded like myself, okay?
Sure.
In colonial times,
Okay.
all right, are you putting yourself there?
Yeah.
What were
I'm there.
apples called?
What will?
And I will tell you that they were they were not or maybe they had a nickname, but there are two of them, and one of them is really funny, and one of them is only partially funny.
Were they called? Were they just called crab apples? Was that different? Were they called love apples? I feel like I've heard that term before.
No,
All right. Just tell me.
and
There's
I'm
two
upset
different.
with you for
am
saying that. So the not as funny one is melt in the mouths.
They were called melt in the mouths.
Yes.
Ugh.
Or here's my favorite. Is everybody ready? This does
ready.
deserve a drum roll.
Jared, listen.
Winter bananas.
You are kidding me. I need to see that. You are exactly right. I need to see the source on this. Winter bananas.
All right, here's a really tough one. Are you ready? What sport do folks gather together to watch every weekend in the fall months?
Hockey.
Football.
I know.
You are a northerner.
I'm just being silly. Winter bananas. That's a really
Told
term.
you.
So Jared has now sourced this. Snopes has confirmed.
I'm going to go ahead and just make this decision on behalf of the church. No vote needed. Apples, heretofore. Winter bananas.
Winter bananas. Would you enjoy a winter banana today?
What happens to hay bales if they get too wet?
I thought they rot. They don't rot?
Not according to this.
They
Is this
stink.
right?
They do smell bad if a hay bale gets too wet.
Excessive moisture is the most common cause of hay fires. The answer was they spontaneously combust.
If they get too wet, they spontaneously combust?
Do you see how confrontational he is?
What in the world? Listen,
Look, I clicked on the link.
I already told you earlier, I
Extension
understand.
and Ag Research. This is an agricultural educational website they have linked me to that says don't risk hay fires. Excessive moisture is the most common cause of hay fires.
So, As I stated earlier, I am well versed in the laws of physics, and as I understand it, putting water on something puts a fire out. However, I have heard this before, especially in a mulch situation. You've seen like in those like in the places where they sell mulch and gravel, that sort of thing, big stockyard. Yes, they will have piles of mulch catch fire because there's so much being heat by the bacteria. There's so much heat being generated by the bacteria that are breaking things down. So yes, I actually understand that because the bacteria thrive in moist environments.
Okay, would you like to hear the official answer?
I just gave it.
High moisture haystacks and bales can catch on fire because they have chemical reactions that build the heat. Hay insulates, so the larger the haystack, the less cooling that occurs to offset the heat. When hay's internal temperature rises above 130 degrees Fahrenheit, a chemical reaction begins to produce flammable gas that can ignite if the temperature goes high enough.
That is incredible.
Let's see.
Okay, what else
Who
do
was
we
the
have?
first group of people in history to use scarecrows? I'm going to go ahead and click on the link because I know you're going to argue with me about this too.
That would be the people of Spooky Hollow, I believe.
I think that might be the Vikings.
No.
The Vikings were the first ones. It's got to be earlier than that, right? Scarecrows. So where are So crows are exclusively found in Alabama. So it has to be like people from, right? I'm right so far, right? No, I don't know. Go ahead and tell. These are really difficult questions. I should be looking at the computer screen.
The Egyptians were the first group of people in recorded
did you
history
say
to
that?
use scarecrows to protect their wheat fields along the Nile River.
Didn't help them during the 10 plagues. Am I right? Boom, roasted.
What do you call a male turkey? Not you personally. What does
Fred
what
is
should
my
one
male
call
turkey
a male
friend.
turkey?
It's gobbler is what
Yes,
comes to mind.
yes.
Gobbler.
Finally, one answer we don't have to argue about. What is the official word for the sound of leaves and trees rustling in the wind?
There's
an
an
official word.
Thistle.
No.
Buzzword.
There's
no
an
version of the word you
official
said.
word of leaves and trees rustling, and I probably would have said rustling, rustle.
You can't use the one of the words in the question as part of the
Well,
answer.
so if
We all
you
know
and me
that's
were
wrong.
just having a non-televised conversation, I would really think about this hard. But now you just need to tell me.
Scythurism.
Oh, I never would have gotten it.
P-S-I-T-H-U-R-I-S-M.
Not very,
Scythurism.
not very poetic at all.
No. This one, hey, Ren, I know you don't watch, but just in case you happen to get on Facebook where you don't even have an account, this question is just for you. Why do you see more large spiders around Halloween? We're not talking about decorations. We're talking about actual living spiders.
Okay, I'm guessing because the birds have migrated and they're not eating the spiders, so the spiders are growing to their normal size. Thank you.
Educated guess, but wrong. Spiders that hatched in the spring have grown up and are now actively in their mating season. So not only have they been growing the whole time, but they're like out and about trying to meet people.
Trying to make friends.
Right, trying to make friends.
Molting season.
Spider, yeah, carving up. The spiders. My son, even though he is like a champion when it comes to killing cockroaches, which are a big problem here in the South, but but for some reason he is terrified of spiders. Like when I was his age, I was picking up daddy long legs and throwing them around and stuff like that. But he won't go anywhere near them. You got any tips?
No. Ren has felt that way her entire life, and she still does. Like, I literally, when I'm feeling like a less generous parent, will just send her like a really creepy spider pic. And her answer, her text back is always like, why? Why did you do that?
They can be. I tell you, you see the big, like the macro lens of like those soulless spider eyes, and there's 8 of them. Like those can be really terrifying, really
Agreed.
close up.
So your son is right on, is what we're saying. He's actually,
I just feel like a daddy long legs is not worth being scared of.
they're still creepy.
There were always
harmless or not.
There were always those urban legends about how they were actually the most poisonous spider in the world, but their mouth was too small. They couldn't actually bite human skin.
It's a fascinating story.
You never heard that
No.
one? Jared, you heard that one.
That's facts.
You went to it's fact that is a story that people would tell.
I explain it all the time because I'd be like, their mouth's too small.
They can't, they're harmless. Yeah, I kind of feel the same way about spiders as I do about snakes. I don't freak out as much, just like if I see a spider or a picture of something, because I know there's no danger there. But in person, a spider is a spider, a snake is a snake. These people that like post their snakes in their yard online, like, what kind of snake is this? Is it a good or bad snake? I'm like,
Snakes.
It's a
We're just
snake.
keeping our distance.
Yes.
We're not Steve, what's his name over here? The crocodile hunter. Steve Dundee. What was his name?
No.
Dead air right now. I'm trying not to tell you.
Irwin.
Steve
Irwin.
Irwin finally found it.
All right, how about two more? You want two more, and then we'll
Two more, and then we'll wrap this
finally
up.
recap this this sermon. How many pies can a bushel of apples, or as they're known around Valleydale, winter bananas, make?
A bushel of winter.
A bushel.
Man, this is
is
so
approximate,
hard.
obviously, but you have a bushel of apples. How many pies do you think can be
Conversion from bushel
to pie?
nice.
I don't know.
Apples.
I don't know.
I mean, all those boring people that use the metric measurements don't know what they're missing. So a bushel is pretty large. However, we're not taking into account what kind of apples, because some apples are like grapefruit size now.
Except that we've talked before on here, because we're a big fan of winter bananas,
The Honeycrisp winter
about
bananas
apples.
are-
We have talked about this
Granny
before.
Smith, the green apples,
Yes.
are most commonly used in apple pies. So picture
That's
some of
true.
those.
I'm
Picture some
picturing,
of
I'm
those.
picturing Granny Smith,
A
the
bushel of
apple,
those. How
the
many
apple,
pies?
not the person. Picturing Granny Smith. And so a bushel, is about yay high, and can be bartered for, different types of maize. I think I'm going to go with 10 pies. I think you could make 10 pies from a bushel of Granny Smith apples.
This says, now this is according to Parley Farms and their page called Apple Facts, that it can produce 21 pies.
Oh, that's nice. Okay.
A bushel of apples weighs about 42 pounds.
You're getting a lot of bang for your buck when you get a bushel of apples. What about a peck of apples? Do they say what a peck is?
No.
I just remember my mom used to sing that song to her
bushel
kids.
and a peck and a
Hug around the neck. Yeah,
okay.
that was a really sweet song. So yeah, somehow a bushel and a peck, both units of measurements that are now antiquated. Similar to the cubit. We talked a lot about cubits when we were talking about the Ark of the Covenant, that sort of thing.
We did.
This was like when we went to the Ark encounter, they would talk about like the common cubit, and then there was the royal cubit, which that was a little bit different.
The
The
ark?
cubit.
So anytime
Oh.
you go to dinner, you be like, yeah, our room's about 6 cubits wide.
When Tommy gets in today, let's ask her to please order us a cubit of winter apples.
Cubit would not. You would want to. No, you would have to have a cubic cubit. Because It would
No.
have to be a cubit of winter apples.
Yes.
But that's just a unit of length. Why are
He's
you
acting
still
like I'm
covering your
serious.
screen?
He's acting like I'm serious about this. Last question,
I thought we've been serious
because
all the time.
you have a hard time not looking. That's why. And sometimes I forget how blind you are. Why is it typically more humid in the corn maze than in the pumpkin patch? We're ending with this one because this is the visual I want to.
The moisture and our maize.
Yeah.
Fire.
Yeah, because there's a chemical reaction happening in the corn stalks that when it reaches 130 degrees produces flammable gas.
Okay, that's haystacks, but
The haystacks combust.
They're made. It's
Okay.
still dried out. pieces
simply
of plant.
put, the answer on this very official website that I have been getting all this great knowledge from, it says corn sweats.
Corn sweats.
Corn sweats.
Happy fall, everyone. Corn sweats.
Corn
Winter bananas, the new fruit.
So this
Around
has been fun hanging out with you, Miss Joanna, and I've enjoyed our chat about all these fall facts that I do not know, nor do I understand.
But this is called the sermon recap.
Yeah, well, at least this week it is. I guess so. Pastor left early yesterday, so we didn't get a chance to recap the message with him. We're not going to do a full recap of the message yesterday because there was just too much information. I think I'm going to have to listen to it again, especially thinking about the relationship of Palestine and Israel, that ongoing conflict. But I will say this. So coming up in the weeks to come, we've got a lot of special guests planned here for the Sermon Recap Pod. Just as we've got some guest pulpiteers, if you will. Not puppeteers, pulpiteers, who will be bringing the Word of God in the next 4 weeks or so. So, Pastor, so my brother and I had a conversation about this yesterday because he obviously only comes to the church once every 4 years or so, which is, similar to some of our membership, right? Am I right? All right. He came, and he was like, is that a normal sermon for Pastor Mac? And I started to say yes, because, I mean, it still was obviously Pastor doing his thing and taking us through history, and that's it. But like, in the grand scheme of things, it was very out of the ordinary because Pastor is not a topical preacher by any stretch of the imagination. And I think I know that he did a little bit of topical stuff when we were talking about the church vision, but that was more than 3 years ago. This has got to be his first topical message since then. I think it just shows how deeply this particular subject impacts him and how much he wanted to be able to relate to the congregation a message of hope.
Yeah, it was really helpful, though. I mean, he talked about a lot of the things that we've been discussing at our home, like who really is this camp, like what is this really about, all those types of things. But then, I mean, I just thought the way he handled it was so helpful in that he, as he always does, just pointed people in the right direction. Like, this is how we should be thinking about this. He preached mainly from Psalm 83. And his 3 main points, I do, first of all, I'd say if you haven't seen the message, haven't listened to it, go back and listen to it, because he does dig into some of those just like basic elements of what's going on right now to help people understand, like I said, both parties and where they're coming from. But the main takeaways yesterday were when the enemy encircles us, they are attacking our God. That is their intent.
Yeah, that's there in the text for sure.
When the enemy encircles us, we are to pray boldly. That's our call. And when the enemy encircles us, we should have a deep desire to evangelize. That it should provoke us, basically, to.
If there's one point I want to reemphasize before we close up shop here today, it's that last one, because I think too often we get so wrapped up in our frustration that there is evil in the world. Obviously, there's terrible evil that's happened there in Israel, and Pastor reminding us the message of the law of Christ, which is that we are supposed to love our enemies. We're supposed to pray for those who persecute us, and we're supposed to continue to offer a message of hope to them. And we actually sang that yesterday, the vilest offender who truly believes that moment from Jesus a pardon receives. So you can actually see evidence of just about the vilest offenders that you can imagine, if you're turning on the news and seeing what's happening there in Israel and Palestine. But all of those people are still eligible to receive God's perfect gift of salvation.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that really struck me is he said, he stopped and made a point of saying the Palestinians are people for whom Jesus died. Everyone involved in this situation, everyone on this planet is someone for whom Jesus has died. And I think that's an excellent way of looking at it, an excellent reminder for us. And then also he ended with that great story about the bombings while the man, I can't remember, was on broadcasting on BBC, and his response was basically, "It's all right, carry on," which is, I believe, who we have to thank for all of the
signs.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a little bit, I can give a little bit more context to that story. The man's name was Bruce Belgrade.
Thank you.
And so Pastor, I could tell Pastor was wrestling whether he wanted to just say keep calm and carry on, but they're kind of two different quotes, because those posters were originally made for to prepare for an actual ground invasion from Germany. If you're familiar with the World War II history, there was never a ground invasion from Germany. There was the Battle of Britain, where Germany was bombing. There was, I think it was 40 something days that every night they would come and just bomb. Well, so these posters were made. You guys have seen it before. It's got the crown in the middle. It says keep calm and carry on. There's been a lot of memes and a lot of rehashing of that. And so I think that guy might have had Bruce. I mean, he might have.
He was actually quoting those. Gotcha.
He was, and so, but they, as I understand it, they were never in wide use because that ground invasion hadn't happened. But I might be wrong about that. They might have put him up. Either way, that's what he said. Plaster's falling on his head, and he recognizes that he has a mission ahead of him. He has to deliver the news to the people, and he recognizes that ultimately, or he believes that ultimately, it's going to be okay. And that's what we have to remember. There's too many people. I've had a few conversations recently. It makes me sad. People are just so gloom and doom about this thing, and it is a very sad situation. But we can't simply assume it is going to lead to even worse conflicts. We can't just wallow in frustration or depression. I mean, there needs to be perhaps a time of mourning, but like Pastor encouraged us yesterday, God is over this situation, and God has promised to make it right in the end, regardless of the specifics of your eschatology as far as what happens when. The ending is sure that God's victory will be realized.
And so what's really struck me in talking to people about it is, and I don't mean to make light of it at all, not at all, but nothing has really changed. Like, still, as before this started happening over a week ago, no one's guaranteed tomorrow. No one's guaranteed the next minute. And so when you see people that are kind of scrambling, like, this is the end, we don't know. And we didn't know before this started. So again, pointing to his third point, let this be a conversation starter when people are concerned, when people are panicking, when people are asking you about these things that are going on in the world. Remind them that that's always the case, is that we're not guaranteed tomorrow, and we need to be right with God.
So thanks, Pastor. You're still out there. I guess you're a few hours ahead of us. You're keeping calm and carrying on in Britannia. And I'm grateful that we have a pastor that has this kind of knowledge and wants to share it with all of us. I'm grateful that we have such a wonderful church. And if you guys haven't seen that message yet, we do encourage you to go check it out. It's on YouTube as we speak. Lots more information than what Joanna and I talked about. But I think we covered it today, Miss Joanna. We got a lot in about Fall Fest, which is an important event coming up. We recapped the sermon from yesterday. Anything else that we need to say?
Biggest takeaway, winter apples or winter bananas. New terminology for apples. We're going to put it in the bylaws. Jared, will you get on that for us?
It's already done.
Yeah,
Great.
Jared is our pastor of AI, and also, are you the pastor of the bylaws? Is that what you said?
The bylaws pastor.
Bylaws pastor. Okay,
It's hard to keep all his titles straight.
Yeah, I know. Good job, Jared, with all your new titles and
Thanks,
whatnot.
Jared.
We'll see you guys soon.
Bye.